Good morning, I'm Gerry Cassidy with your Scottish news. Strathclyde police have launched 2 murder hunts following a violent weekend in the west of Scotland. The body of Scott Margery was discovered in Stevenson in Ayrshire in the early hours of yesterday. Police say the 27-year-old was the victim of a violent attack. In West Dunbartonshire, detectives are hunting the killers of 20-year-old Scott Adams. Tributes have been left at the scene of his murder in Morrison Street in Duntoker. The Scottish Government's decision to release the Lockerbie bomber will be discussed in the White House later when David Cameron meets Barack Obama. Abdelbaset al-Megrahi was freed from Greenock prison on compassionate grounds. US politicians have called for an inquiry after suggestions BP tried to influence the decision. The Scottish Government has denied any involvement from the oil giant. One MSP says allegations of dodgy deals should be levelled at the former Westminster government. Thanks, Katie. Well, passengers from Sombra Airport on Shetland to Glasgow International are facing travel chaos today. All Scottish airports have suspended flights. Airport operators are monitoring the situation closely and will issue the latest information on their websites. But a spokesman for BAA told me this morning this would cause major disruption throughout the day, with most flights grounded until at least 7 o'clock tonight. Anyone who is planning to travel today is being urged to contact their airline before heading to the airport. But while Scottish airports have been badly affected, rescue helicopters will still be able to fly. I've spoken to the Air Rescue Coordination Centre at Kinloss this morning, and they tell me they're confident they will be able to respond to any emergencies. We'll keep you updated on this story throughout this morning. Katie, back to you. Business as usual. That's how ScotRail bosses are describing services across Scotland as a strike by guards and drivers enters its second day. Members of the RMT union walked out yesterday in a row over staffing on the new Airdrie to Bathgate line. ScotRail says at least 95% of trains have been running as normal. Most workers will return to their jobs tomorrow, but with no resolution in the dispute, more industrial action could be on the cards. And finally, we've been warned not to binge on sunshine after a long, harsh winter. These were the scenes in Inverclyde yesterday as everyone made the most of the sudden warm weather. Despite temperatures dropping slightly today, there are fears people may be so keen to soak up the rays they forget about the dangers.
The springtime is always a difficult time of the year for the skin, primarily because it's not pigmented or thickened up because we've had really very little ultraviolet light through the winter time. So we're in the position where we've got the most delicate skin that we'll have all summer. So this is the time to be most careful.
Well, let's see if you need your sunscreen today. Here's the weather forecast. Well, Catherine, this election result is yet another disaster for Gordon Brown, a swing to the SNP by 22%. That would deseat him in a general election. So where did it all go wrong for Gordon? Deprivation and crime in the East End. Voters in this Labour stronghold have obviously had enough. Nationally, remember, soaring cost of living, especially the spiralling cost of fuel. And Labour Scottish leader Wendy Alexander had to resign over financial irregularities. Can Labour come back from this defeat? Well, Scotland is shivering in sub-zero temperatures this morning, dipping to -15 in Braemar overnight. Snowplows and gritters have been out overnight clearing main routes, but motorists are still being told to expect hazardous driving conditions. The wintry weather is still causing problems at our airports with delays at Prestwick after this plane skidded off the runway yesterday. And there's disruption at Aberdeen, Inverness, Glasgow and Edinburgh. There's also delays on our rail network too, so do check before you travel. Meanwhile, charities are warning the plummeting temperatures can be fatal for some of our most vulnerable people. Well, as we enter week number 3 of freezing wintry conditions across Scotland, many people are still talking about the wintry weather affecting our roads, railways and the fact that many councils have a lack of grit. But that hasn't stopped many Scots enjoying the wintry weather. Here we are in the middle of the Scottish countryside. No, I'm not standing in the middle of a field. I'm actually on top of the frozen Lake of Monteith. And tomorrow we'll find out if this could be the setting for the Scottish Curling Championships. The bodies of the 2 men and 1 woman were discovered by the concierge here at the Red Road Flats on Petershill Drive in the Springburn area of Glasgow yesterday morning. It's reported the 3 had fallen to their deaths from a 15th floor balcony at block number 63. Forensic teams carried out a detailed search of the scene throughout the day. The building was sealed off and local residents weren't allowed into the area. The flats are let to the YMCA charity, which houses refugees and asylum seekers from Africa, Eastern Europe, Iran and Iraq. Officers are continuing to carry out their investigations to try to establish the identities of the men and the women. However, at this stage, detectives believe there are no suspicious circumstances. Gerry Cassidy, GTMV Scotland. With just 2 days until senators start their own investigation into the release of Abdelbaset al-Megraki, there's been a development. The US government's released a letter revealing its stance on the issue before a decision was made by Scottish Justice Secretary Kenny McCaskill. The document confirms the White House didn't support any kind of release for Megraki, but if Holyrood took that decision, releasing him on compassionate grounds would be far preferable to a prisoner transfer deal. On Thursday, a committee of American politicians will gather to look into claims BP was involved in Megraki's release. In the meantime, the Scottish Government welcomed this publication, saying it's an important part of its constructive engagement with the Senate committee. Gerry Cassidy, GTMV Scotland.